What a pleasure to be with you today. So I guess I'll start with telling you that I've been fascinated by thinking about what makes us tick for as long as I can remember. And so effectively what I'm telling you is that I'm a psychology fanatic. And that probably edges back to when I was at school. I went to a selective school, and so that means that to get in, you needed to sit an exam at the age of 10. And that exam would determine whether or not you got in. And I thought how interesting that we would all get to the end of our time in that school, and we all went off in such different directions. And some of us went to some of the world's best universities, and some of us went to universities that were notably not as good. And it made no sense to me. I thought there's got to be something interesting at play. That fascination, I guess, developed. And while I was at university, I heard about a program called Teach First. So if you don't know it, in their words, not mine, they say that they take the country's best graduates, they put them into the country's worst schools to try and raise the standard of learning. And I heard about this program, and at a time when all of my peers, and myself included, were thinking about careers in the city, I thought this is an amazing opportunity to work with kids, potentially have the opportunity to change their lives by offering them a standard of learning that is based on the privileged education that I've had, and put off getting a real job in the city for 2 years. So I went through the interview process, and I was offered a position. It was amazing. I was so delighted. There are no words. Turns out I was their youngest ever cohort participant. So I started my teacher training when I was 20, and I started in school when I was just over 21 and 2 weeks. My oldest students were 19, so there was a lot of blagging going on when kids asked how old I was. Miss, how old are you? And I'd say, I'm 30. But it was a super challenging environment also. As much as it was a lot of fun, I didn't really realize the depth of challenge that would come. So I was teaching 7 subjects up to age 19. And I was teaching in a super toxic environment, actually. So the ethos within my managers was that the best way to teach kids was to take PowerPoints that had been prepared 4 years previously and feed them to the kids. And at a higher level, the senior management were embezzling tens of thousands of pounds from the school to run parties. So if there's not enough challenge in an inner city school already, you can imagine how thin the air was there. I actually left early. I left within my first year, and I called myself a failure for it. And it's something that I held on to for years coming, or years following, that would be a better word. What's interesting is, looking back, that laid the foundations for me to found my own firm, Elevare. So Elevare now has evolved to be an 80-strong company. We have people across the world working with our clients. And what we do is we work with our clients' children to take them to peak levels of happiness, peak confidence, peak performance, so that they are best primed to be their best selves, so that when they are looking to achieve their goals, they're in the best position to do it. The way that we do so is we have something called the Elevare methodology, and it's a combination of taking everything that I've learned from psychology and pedagogy, being in the classroom and being with kids one-on-one, to give our kids an edge. And our success rates in terms of what we're helping our kids achieve are really phenomenal. What I wanted to do with you today was share with you some of the features of that toolkit that we use to take our kids to being their best selves. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, off of the back of telling you about the failure of my early career, was touching on the word failure. I think especially, the last time I was at the Hero Roundtable, I was in the Netherlands. Today we're in London, and I think it's a very different culture. I actually think failure is a worse F word than the real F word in this country. And I think if you're British, you'll know that we don't talk about failure here. It's a really dirty thing. We enjoy hearing stories about overnight success and glory and winning. And sometimes talking about failure, it seems to have a dirtier tinge to it. There's a theory called growth mindset. If you're not familiar with it, Carol Dweck coined the term, and what she says is that if you possess a growth mindset, you're in a position to view failure differently. You see failure as a place from which to learn, rather than something that you use to define you. It's interesting. I got to thinking about that from a more personal perspective. And I think that every time life throws at you challenge or difficulty, really what's going on is that you're being sent a lesson. Your job, if you want to turn that failure into a triumph, is to find the lesson. So for me, looking at Teach First, that was an opportunity for me to learn, A, what sits right with me and what doesn't. I didn't enjoy that toxic environment. I didn't think it was appropriate that children were learning in that way. But also, I think I had the opportunity to learn about the kind of world in which kids learn best. And I took that from there. It's also worth considering that if you don't learn the lessons the first time the failure comes, Oprah says that the lesson will come over and over again. And if you consider your own lives, you can probably see where that's happened. Bouncing off of that idea, the second thing I wanted to take you to was this idea that the path that you're on now will not be the path that you have to finish on. I think so often we're told in the culture in which we live that our careers and our lives and our academic progress at a younger age is sequential. What we do at this age will impact what we do at that age, and if you get it wrong here, it will go wrong there, there, and so on. It's super deterministic and actually quite frightening. I want to tell you about something called neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is this idea that our brains are constantly growing. Previously, psychologists and neuroscientists told us that our brains stopped growing when we were 11, 12, 13. How dismal, this thought that really our brains stop growing and we start deteriorating when we're not even 20. Thankfully, new research is telling us something different. There was a study at UCL, a university not too far from here actually, where they took cab drivers. You know the black cab drivers in London? They somehow know every road in London. They always know the back streets can get you like everywhere faster than an Uber can. It's because they did an exam. It's a 2-year course, and the exam at the end is called the knowledge. Imagine how intense the knowledge. It really is though, because they come away knowing everything about London's streets. What's interesting that the researchers found was that they looked at their brains before and at the end of finishing that study, and they literally found in men, and I say men because most taxi drivers are men, as opposed to being casually sexist, 40, 50, 60, 70 years of age, and people's brains were changing. Literally, the neural networks were becoming more dense. The lesson there is, if you can then go back, find the areas of challenge, and work on them, physically your brain will change. And if you literally have the power to change your own brain, then you literally have the power to change your own behavior, your own belief systems, and then fundamentally the results that you get in the end and the goals that you look to achieve. I want to move on from there to something that's a little bit less sciencey and potentially will be perceived as more fluffy. I can't help myself, actually. So a secret about me, maybe not so secret, I'm a yoga addict. And something that I learned through yoga was that there's a lot of wisdom in our bodies that we ignore. We are accustomed in the academic paths that we follow and the careers that we follow to think that all of the wisdom that we have is in our minds. And so we think about everything, we analyze everything, and we rely on our minds to tell us everything that we need to know. Actually, I would have it that there's a lot of wisdom in our bodies, and that wisdom is something that we call intuition. And it's something that gets downplayed. I wanted to touch on the fact that Einstein once said, so Einstein, the smartest man who I think ever lived, said that the intuition is a gift and the mind its faithful servant. And we've flipped it the other way around in the society in which we live. And I think that takes us to a place where when we try and understand why is it that 2/3 of kids now, 2/3, and that's potentially, I think, an understatement, 2/3 of kids will suffer from some kind of mental illness, whether that's depression or anxiety or something more frightening like a severe eating disorder. It somewhat makes sense because we're living in our heads. When we teach our kids how to have some emotional intelligence, they A, are happier, B, more confident, and C, more capable to face the challenges that they are facing. And fundamentally, that makes a difference to the adults that they grow to be. I think if we take all of those things, it takes us to a place where we are able to equip a child or even an adult with thinking about what what puts them in a position to be really special. And we best equip that child to think about where their strengths lie. Martin Luther King said that everybody can be great, which sounds like a grandiose statement, but actually, I think what he was saying when he followed on from that is everybody can be great if they find a way to serve others. I find that every child we work with, once they have become emotionally intelligent, comfortable with themselves, they have a new vantage point on the world in which they live, they also find that they have gifts, that every child that we work with is sitting on gifts. And once we can bring them out, they find a way that they can help other people around them. I already told you I'm a yoga addict. There's a famous yogi, Yogi Bhajan, who said, "You have one job, be the lighthouse. Be so filled up with light that it's coming out of you." And what's interesting is when we become our best selves, that's exactly what happens. Almost by accident, you're filled with light. You find the things that give you joy, the things that you're good at, and they are coming out of you, and people can't help but notice. Fundamentally, I was thinking about this morning on the way to you, and I was thinking what we're really in the business of doing is helping our parents help their children to become the heroes of their own lives. And when they become the heroes of their own lives, they're best equipped to be other people's heroes too, without even knowing so. And so on that point, I'm conscious that often in these talks, I read a statistic that 90% of what is said on the stage will have left you by the end of the day. And that has more to do with me than you for sure. But on that note, so what I would like to invite you to do is actually join me in something that we're working on. So Elevare, so 2017 marked the year that we became a socially conscious company. And when I say that, what I mean is that for every child that we work with privately, we have committed ourselves to helping a girl in India in poverty go to school. By the end of this year, we want to be able to say that we've helped 1,000 children change their lives. And so what I would like to invite you today to join me in is just think about some of the things that I've said today. And if you can just take just one of the things that I told you about that makes up a part of our toolkit, and see if you can apply it to your own life. That's the first thing. Just take that one thing and think about how you can apply it to your own life, and then do it. And now I want you to think about one child who's super special to you. Just one. If you can think of more, even better, but just one will do for now. And when you're with that child, I want you to show them that you're doing those things. So that might be that you talk about the things that you've got wrong and how you've grown from it. It might be talking about your feelings. It might be talking about the way that you can help other people around you. But what's interesting is that children love copying adults. I'm sure I don't need to tell you. But I think the ripple effects that will extend from there can be just magic. And so if you'll join me in that, that would be my delight. Thank you.
The Hero Roundtables are the global events that ask the question, what is a hero? You've just seen one hero talk. To find more and join the conversation, visit our website or social media.